I'm Isabel Stainsby, and I'm reading from Frontiers of the Imperium by Czech science fiction author Jan Kotouč. The Myriad Casino in the middle of Hub Central was very well air-conditioned, and Daniel Hankerson was grateful for this. The air was always fresh and refreshing, by the standards of a giant space station, and the musty, sweaty smell of the players' despair was not evident. The Myriad targeted clientele from the best society, so nobody was bothered by the presence of Daniel, an enhance. Daniel had previously encountered minor prejudices in several casinos, where it did not make sense to explain that an enhance's chances of winning were no greater than anyone else's. Enhance, often known colloquially as Enners, could boast faster reflexes, greater physical resistance, a faster metabolism, and many other things, including a higher average IQ. But no enhance was automatically a mathematical genius, able to figure out what cards the other players held. Daniel turned his attention, as usual, to his greatest casino passion. "Mr. Berthold, you are big blind," said the dealer, who could have walked into any beauty contest in the Imperium and walked off with the crown. "Oh, certainly," said the player to Daniel's left, and tossed a 100 chip onto the gaming table. Daniel had small blind, and raised him a 50 chip. "Place your bets, please," said the dealer, and placed the flop of 3 cards on the table. The remaining 2 players called big blind. As small blind, Daniel needed only to raise the half, but he decided otherwise. He threw down 2 chips, 100. His opponents were certainly trying to guess whether his hand was interesting, or whether he was just bluffing. This was what was important in this game. All 3 players called Daniel's bet. When the bets were in, the dealer turned over the first card of the flop. Daniel settled down and concentrated on the game. "Excuse me, Mr. Hankerson, there is a robot at the entrance claiming to be your servant." Daniel raised an eyebrow as the doorman bowed to him almost subserviently, but spoke with an expression suggesting that clearly such a noble sir couldn't possibly have a robot servant. "Yes, that will be Kelvin. Let him come in," he smiled. "If it isn't a problem?" "Of course not, sir, of course not." The doorman swept off, and Daniel cast an apologetic glance at his opponents. "I do apologize. I don't think it will be anything important. Please deal me out of the next round." He stood up and turned to face Kelvin. "What's up?" "You did not return when you said you would," said Kelvin primly. He was a typical K-20 model robot from Asher Robotics, deliberately designed to evoke the early illustrations of robots from the 20th century. "Yes, I didn't return home on time. This is my last evening on the station, Kelvin, and I stayed out to play cards. I'll be playing for some time yet." "You said you would be back in your quarters by midnight." "Yes, I did, but I wasn't. I tried to call you and couldn't." "Kelvin, I turned the comlink off. I wanted to be left alone." "Sir, how can I serve you when you don't cooperate with me?" This was typical of this model. K-20s were English butlers, to a T. "Okay, I understand, but I don't need your help. I'm going to be here for some time, so you can just go back to the barracks." "Please will you leave your comlink on, sir?" Kelvin tried again. "Yes, okay, I will. Actually, given that you're here, could you get me a drink from the bar?" If Kelvin could smile, he would have done so now. "Of course, sir, my pleasure. What would you have?" "A tombara sling," said Daniel, "and make sure they mix it properly." "I'll be right back." The robot scuttled away, and Daniel returned to the table where another game was just finishing. "Thank you for waiting for me," he said nonchalantly. "Who is big blind?" The dealer gave an answer, but Daniel's attention was suddenly distracted. Over her shoulder he could see one of the casino's entrances. 4 sturdy men were just coming in. Their movements were confident. They knew where they were going and why they were here. Daniel suddenly realized that it was not to play cards. They all quickly drew weapons from their jackets, 2 pistols and 2 submachine guns. A ray of light from one of the ceiling aquariums fell directly onto the face of the group leader. "Nobody move! This is a stick-up! We only want money!" he yelled. 2 of his cronies fired into the air. The screams of guests reverberated round the casino. Some clutched their heads in panic, others hid under tables or lay on the floor. Others remained seated, as if turned to stone. So did Daniel. Armed robbery? Here? Hub Central was enormous, certainly big enough to have its own underworld, but a robbery? Here? Those people could have a maximum of a few minutes before the station police arrived. Did they want to shoot their way out? The remaining 3 looked around the hall again. Daniel noticed that his 3 opponents and the dealer had frozen. Keep still and don't move. Playing the hero made no sense. Even the casino staff understood that. Everything was insured. It made no sense to take any risks, and... "Hey, you!" shouted one of the thieves, and Daniel, astonished, saw that the thief was looking directly at him. He advanced, the light and shadows from the suspended aquarium illuminating his face. And Daniel saw mulishness there, and something else. "I've seen photos of you. You're an Anna. I fucking hate Annas." He raised his submachine gun and opened fire.